Well, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to SMarketPlace. We are live on YouTube and LinkedIn, and we are a podcast about sales, marketing, and our favorite topic, rock and roll. I'm here in the studio with my partner in crime here, Tom Dempsey. Welcome, Tom. Good to
Thanks,
see you.
Keith. Good to see you, my friend.
Same, same. So, as we were warming up, we both have a couple concerts coming up.
Yes, that's right. I've got this Saturday at Red Rocks, which I'm always excited to go to, is Widespread Panic with Billy Strings.
Oh, I
So,
heard they were coming. Um, I saw Widespread Panic with the Stones last year.
oh, that's
They opened.
right. All
I think it was,
right.
yeah, it was Denver or Chicago. I don't, it all blends together. But
All
yeah, it was, they're amazing.
right. Great.
I I have my first Red Rocks concert coming up, Tedeschi Trucks Band, August 2nd. So I'm pretty excited about seeing both Red Rocks and the band.
Good for you. That is a very special place in the world, I think. And I'm biased, but it's
Yeah.
such a great place to see a show.
Well, I can't wait. So let's get moving along. We have Kevin Perlmutter back again.
Hello.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
I am fantastic. Great to be back.
Good. Yeah, thanks for coming. And we're really excited. You have a new book coming out, and we'd love to hear about it.
I'm psyched that we're here and we're going to talk about it some. So that sounds wonderful.
Tell us a little bit about the book and your journey to get there.
Oh, well, anybody who's ever written a book knows it's a journey, one that I wasn't completely aware of when I started. But I'm a brand strategist. I've been doing this for a long time. I grew up in advertising. I worked at a global brand consultancy for nearly a decade, where I led strategy for some really large brands and created their first ever global customer experience practice. And that ended around 2014. And from there, I went to a sonic branding music studio where I led strategy, innovation, and research. It's a studio that creates music and sound for brands, entertainment companies, products, those types of things. And while I was there, I created a research capability with some neuroscientists, an outside research company that is neuroscience based and does a lot of research at the subconscious level using quantitative techniques that are highly accurate at assessing subconscious instincts and associations and feelings as a predictor of future behaviors. And it came into my mind as doing that wow, this is missing from traditional brand strategy, this understanding of behavioral science and the power of our emotional insights and our instinctive responses to things that we encounter on a moment to moment basis is not something that I really ever had conversations about or worked with when I was at the brand consultancy. So after a few years of doing that, launching that research capability, doing dozens of studies and seeing the results of those, in 2019, I decided to launch Limbic Brand Evolution, which is a brand consultancy that puts emotional insight at the center of a brand strategy approach I call Limbic Sparks brand strategy. And that was the beginning for me of using behavioral science understanding and deep curiosity about what people are motivated by, and putting that at the center of brand strategy. And at some point, I thought, maybe I should write a book about this. And beginning in January of 2023, I started putting pen to paper. And now, as we record this podcast at the end of June, it is days away from being out in the world.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's
So you mentioned emotional insight at the center of brands. You specifically to attract and retain customers.
Yes.
So can you talk just a little bit about that? Because that is a direct parallel to brand desire.
Absolutely, it is. So many brand leaders are, to this day, still using traditional brand strategy. And traditional brand strategy are familiar ways of working that have been around for a really long time and are often rooted in the persuasion era, a time that began decades ago, before we had the internet, before we had social media, before we had online reviews, when brands were able to hide bad experiences behind good advertising. And that's no longer the case. And that changed nearly a dozen years ago. But for some strange reason, the relics of traditional brand strategy and persuasion-based approaches still persist among brand leaders, companies, brand consultancies. And emotional insights are when you gain those when you spend more time with customers, understanding what drives their decisions and behaviors, and bringing that into brand strategy. So often brand work is done where, company insiders and company leaders, have big ideas and want to push them out, or they have products and services with features and benefits that they want to talk about, or I'm not saying that they don't use customer insights. They definitely do, but they're not going to the extent of truly understanding the motivations of customers, what people are wanting, needing, desiring, frustrated with in their own lives, in the absence of your brand, and then finding an intersection of how your brand can make their lives better in a compelling and relevant way. I'll say one more thing about this that we can go into deeper if you have more questions. But one of the challenges perpetuating this is this fascination that people have with finding their why. It's a great leadership principle. It's also about 10, 11, 12 years old. It's a great leadership principle, finding your why. But when it's misappropriated as a framework for brand strategy, finding your why in the absence of understanding your who is a half-baked brand strategy. If you walk into a bar and you start telling people what you're passionate about, why you care about doing those things, what you're really good at, and you're not asking any questions, you're not getting to know the people you're trying to connect with, you're probably missing the mark in terms of relevance and emotional appeal. So traditional brand strategy brings a lot of that to the table. Limbic Sparks brand strategy is focused on emotional insight to connect with people in ways that feel relevant and desirable.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they really care about.
Yeah, we're discovering what matters most to the people who we're trying to reach, so you can find the relevant intersection of what your brand cares about and what they care about. And one of the big differences between there are many differences between traditional brand strategy and Limbic Sparks brand strategy. And part of it is changing the language and getting rid of things like proof points and reasons to believe and unique selling propositions that are very geared toward persuasion-based selling, and thinking more about having deep curiosity, emotional insights, understanding not reasons to believe, but reasons why people should care, reasons to care. And so some of the things are about changing language. And one of the pieces that I've brought into strategy with this work is what I call the shared emotional motivation. And the shared emotional motivation is the common mission and desire that the brand has, that the audience also has. You're both striving for the same thing in your own way, and you could be doing that together. And if you understand the shared emotional motivation, then you can invite people into your brand with a compelling brand benefit and invitation. Another difference between traditional brand strategy and Limbic Sparks brand strategy. Traditional brand strategy, taglines, brand ideas, a lot of we statements, we do this, we do that. And with Limbic Sparks brand strategy, if it's not a compelling brand benefit and invitation that answers the call of the shared emotional motivation, it doesn't qualify. I can give you a quick example just to clarify the point. I worked with a supply chain company. They have a SaaS software platform that does supply chain management configurations. They figure out, how much inventory warehouses need to have. And these are like multiple warehouses, thousands of SKUs, seasonal variations. And this software is really accurate to help you do that. And many companies are not doing that yet. You're still doing Excel spreadsheets and guesswork and all kinds of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The shared emotional motivation between them and their customers is inventory planning precision. It's a very simple statement, but it's what they both are striving for. This company is doing everything possible to help their customers have more precise information and have more precise buying recommendations so that their inventory levels are precise. Because if it's too little, things can't be sold. Things are out of stock. If it's too much, you could have thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of inventory sitting on shelves in a warehouse, taking up time and space, eating up cash flow, and it's not going anywhere. And that's a problem for the business as well. It's the balance sheet problem. There are companies that nearly go out of business because of this kind of problem, or do go out of business because of this kind of problem. When working with this company, we first identified that shared emotional motivation, this common desire and mission to have planning precision, inventory planning precision. And then in speaking with their customers and understanding what separates this company from its competitors and understanding why customers keep coming back for more to this particular company through a dozen or two interviews and culling through reviews on a website, like 78 reviews that had a 4.7 rating out of 5, understanding the sentiment analysis and what it is that people were responding to, we learned that this company does a few things really well. They eliminate guesswork, they maximize inventory performance, and they have an unmatched partnership because they have people who are actually there to help you use the software every day, which is differentiating in the industry. And that was mentioned by 25% of reviewers, and it wasn't even part of a question. And we also heard one statement through all of this work that was just so enlightening, such an emotional insight, which was, before this company was in my world, I was always the guy who was in trouble. People are always mad at me because I had, the wrong information about certain inventory levels for all of these things that I was responsible for. It's a no-win situation. You can't be right often when you're guessing. But since this company came into my world, I'm like the hero. Like, everybody comes to me. Everybody's like always happy that I have the accurate information, and cash flow is in good shape, and all these things are in good shape. And we evolved their brand from "we put you at the center of supply chain success" to "be supply chain invincible." The benefit and invitation that their customers claim they want to be a part of, that other people in their shoes who don't yet work with this company would love to have in their life. Be supply chain invincible.
That's great.
Great word.
That's a great Fred. That'll stick.
Well, and honestly, when we were talking when I was talking with my clients about it, there was some minor hesitation. They were like, that's a really big claim. Can we stand for that? A lot of times in traditional brand strategy, ad agencies, consultants, they come up with these big claims for companies, and they say, oh, there's in the 2x2, the white space, and there's a white space here, and why don't you go there? And if we say that, nobody else is saying it, but yet they're not delivering it. They're going to start saying something that's a bold stretch on what they're able to deliver. And with the work that I do, we are getting insights from their customers directly. I'm never going to suggest to a brand that they claim a positioning territory that they're not already delivering on, because that is a bad idea. But with this company, we were able to have conversations, and and they were a little nervous because, it was a big claim. And I said, listen, guys, I've spoken with 18 or so of your customers. I've read 77 reviews. You are doing this already.
Right.
All you need to do is stake your claim.
It's really interesting.
People are going to want to feel that way.
The consumer said, I feel like a hero. I mean, there's right? That's
they did that. That was one verbatim of many that gave evidence through insights about how people feel working with this company, that's saying, we will make you supply chain invincible. If you want to feel supply chain invincible, you come to us and you will get that through a benefit and an invitation tagline. That's something that they live up to every single day, and that people in their industry want to feel.
So how do you see that play out now that they've been, they tried that suit on, they liked it, they're out now wearing it?
They're out wearing it. They've been wearing it for a little over a year. They actually do a big customer conference, and they launched it at their customer conference middle of last year. And I remember going on LinkedIn and seeing pictures of their customers and customer testimonials where their customers were saying, "Be supply chain invincible. This is exactly. This is wonderful. This reflects what I want to feel at work." Like, there was a lot of good buzz around it. It was also really interesting to launch it to the company. I was part of a company-wide meeting where we launched it, where the leadership team launched it, and I was part of sharing some of the background and how we got there. And it was interesting to see people feeling really like, wow, that's us. That's what we do. That feels good. It reflects who we are and how we help our customers.
right now? That a company that you respect, that you think has really connected with their customers and have that intersection that you talked about.
Yeah, it's that limbic sparks intersection. It's what I call creating limbic sparks, when emotional motivation meets brand desire. When a brand connects with you in a way through a tagline, a message, an experience, something happens, and you take note. You're like, wait a minute, like that was awesome. That feels like it was designed with me in mind. That feels like exactly what I want in my life, as opposed to an industry, or all the jargons and cliches and things that we keep hearing from the same over and over and
The
over
same
again.
buzzwords
All
all the
this stuff
time.
all over again. It keeps happening. But but when you're creating limbic sparks, man, people are like, wow, that sounds like something I want in my life.
I've recently gotten involved in a new industry um, that's growing like topsy turvy, and all the companies, are kind of came out of the starting gate at the same time. Some have longer history, but the market is really changing. And if you survey them, they all talk about it the same way. It's
Yeah.
all technical details right now. And it's just ripe for somebody to come along and do what you're talking about.
Well, thanks for saying that.
Some get marketing and branding uh, confused,
Hmm.
right? And you think it's one and the same when it's really not one and the same, obviously.
No.
But how do you differentiate to your audience the difference between marketing and branding?
Well, one of the first things I'll say is, personally, I'm not a marketing consultant. I'm a brand strategy consultant, and what I'm helping my clients do is understand the insights that will set the foundation of a strategy that sets the foundation for everything that they do going forward, for their marketing, for their website copy, for their experiences that they put in front of their customers, for their product service development. And if if you bring emotional insight into your world as a chief marketing officer or as any kind of a brand leader, you're actually bringing the insights that could help drive the success of your company in all directions. So first of all, if you're bringing emotional insights to your internal team, you're able to create products and services and experiences and marketing that is reflective of how people want to feel. And when you put it out there, it'll get a better response. And when it gets that better response, you're actually driving customer growth and longevity of the relationship that they have with you. So emotional insights is actually a brand leader's tool to fuel a more successful business. And it brings people together if everyone's focused on what the customer needs, wants, and desires and would like to feel in their life. So I talk about this as creating, having a Limbic Sparks mindset as an individual brand leader or as a company. And when you have a Limbic Sparks mindset, you're obsessed with three questions that you think about in all situations. What is it that people need, want, and desire and are frustrated by? How do they want to feel? How do people want to feel? And then what should your brand say or do to make their lives better? If you could answer those three questions, you're giving yourself a roadmap for always being in touch with how people want to feel and delivering brand product services and experiences and messages that will help them feel that way.
Using that,
Oh, sorry, Keith, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, using that neuromarketing to really reflect uh, the desirability of the brand from the customer's point of view. Our point of view is irrelevant.
Absolutely. Our point of view is 100%. I mean, it's important, but it shouldn't be the deciding factor. You need to find that intersection of what you as a brand do really well and are passionate about, with what customers need, want, and desire, and how they want to feel. And that Limbic Sparks intersection is what's going to create attraction to your brand, not the brand leaders just saying, "Hey, we created this, let's talk about it." So
And
that's a really important distinction that
Tom,
you
to
need.
your question, marketing, the basic principles of the four P's,
Yeah,
right? Pricing, promotion, placement, uh, and
product.
Product.
product. Thank
Yeah.
you. So I'm a marketer. So I get nervous on these things still. After 3 years of podcasting, like my brain still freezes. So thank you.
I hear you.
Um, so, those are the way I interpret this, Kevin, what you just said is the ability then to get out in front of this, understand what the customers are receptive to, what their desires are, and then looking at all four of those P's as the ways that you can implement that. You said
Yes.
the software was the only one in the marketplace that had human beings that were available to help you like right now,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's part of that brand desire. How you write, the content you create, the podcast that you host,
Yep.
all of those things. When you have that uh, ground zero of
Mhm.
brand desire, they infuse everything, all the thinking you do across all four vectors.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the book, I talk about all the things that need to be thought of and done throughout this process. It's certainly not, easy. Sometimes a client wants to get right to the development of strategy or creative, or they're like, "Hey, I need a website or something," and I'm like, "Oh, we got like a phase of work or two to do before we get there." And if you want to skip that phase of work, then you can skip working with me because I'm not going to be involved. But in the book, I talk about the three phases, or the three steps to sparking brand desire. Step one is focus, and that's all about discovering. That's about the insights discovery work. So that would include, your a basic discovery phase where you're looking at, competitive, and you're looking at the industry dynamics and the brand dynamics, and you're looking at, but it is very much heavily focused on talking with customers, whether you're having one-on-one interviews with them, whether you're doing quantitative research, whether you're reading reviews, usually some combination of those. There's no way to do insight discovery, in my mind, without having direct contact with feedback from customers, and having them answer your questions and looking at what they're saying verbatim in reviews without being prompted. That is essential. And that gets you to that shared emotional motivation. And once you have that shared emotional motivation, which is the first bookend of your brand strategy, you could move on to the connect phase. The second phase is connect. First focus, then connect. And in connect, that's about creating brand strategy. And that includes some of the traditional things that you think about. It includes a positioning statement. It includes, coming up with a brand idea and a tagline, personality and voice traits. But what it also includes, one part of it is that shared emotional motivation. And the other criteria is the brand idea, which must be a compelling brand benefit and invitation. And then that is what separates this from traditional brand strategy. And then the last phase, there's focus, connect, and then the last phase is evolve. And evolve is creating brand expression and experiences rooted in how people want to feel. You use that strategy as a foundation. We create a brand messaging hierarchy, which are the primary benefits. We can create sub benefits for each persona, and personas are, groups of people that want to feel a certain way and have certain responsibilities, and when it comes to buying your product, and we were able to activate the brand rooted in all of that emotional insight we got in focus, distilling it down to a strategy and connect, and then bringing it back to life in evolve, where you're using all of that insight to create experiences that feel like they were designed with people in mind.
Mhm.
So when a client gets through the three phases and you're in that evolve stage, talk to us a little bit about how you take this document, right, that is their strategy.
Yep.
How do you activate that with all the employees of of the company? How do you get them all on message, get them, being creative and applying it in their work? Like how does it become
Yeah.
real?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's about communicating with them. And like I shared with the supply chain company, there was a company-wide meeting that I was invited to share the background of the work, how we got there, to share the customer insights, to share the new brand strategy, and to share the messaging, and to share all of this information so that people felt a part of it. People felt, and many of them were part of the development, and many of them were hearing about it for the first time. And there were some that knew what was going on but weren't involved. But by and large, we wanted everyone to understand where it was coming from, that it wasn't just oh, we hired some consultant to just like come up with a new line and, whatever. This was rooted in a lot of insights and research about customers, and be supply chain invincible for that company also becomes the beacon internally for what they're continually striving to achieve. They're continually striving to help their customers feel invincible in their work. So that's an employee engagement piece quite a bit. Another thing that we do is part of the evolve phase is creating what I call a brand messaging hierarchy. It's a single piece of paper. And by the way, the brand strategy bits are one single piece of paper. The brand messaging hierarchy is a second piece of paper, and you could pin them both to your wall. And on the brand messaging hierarchy, it's a grid that shows the 3 core benefits across the top, like eliminate guesswork, maximize inventory performance, unmatched partnership, and then the personas down the bottom, down the side. And for this company, it was C-level executives, the people who have to agree to buy the software, and users of the software. Those were the only 2 personas that we talked about in this case. And within the grid, across the row and down the columns, there are specific sub-emotional benefits for each of those personas. What does it mean to a C-level executive if we're eliminating guesswork? What does it mean to the user of the software if we're eliminating guesswork? So we have that grid, and then you can use that information to activate brand messaging across an entire website, to activate brand messaging in any touch point that you want to use. There are other things that happen as well. Sometimes there's a creation of a sonic identity, if that's an important component of the brand. Sometimes there's a visual identity refresh. And there are definitely brand experiences where you want to bring all this in as well.
I'm curious about is related to multinational companies. And, you think of Nike Swoosh or Apple, those are overarching brands that appeal to a very wide audience.
Yeah.
However, each country, each culture responds to something differently. How do you be able to come up with that same intersection we talked about for different cultures and different countries?
It's a really great question, and certainly international work gets more complicated. Blue Ridge, for example, on this supply chain company I've been talking about, I was interviewing their customers and reviewing customer details both in Europe and in the United States. And we worked with the teams in both countries, the client teams in both countries, to make sure that what we were doing was going to be a good fit in both places. Sometimes brands can have a positioning that works for all of their audiences. And sometimes there needs to be slight adaptations due to cultural nuances. That's always going to be the case. And the important thing is, don't just make it up inside your company and put it out there and hope it works. Talk to customers in each market, understand the differences, and understand if there's an opportunity for things to be 100% consistent, or if there need to be some local market adaptations. The answer is going to be different for every company and every situation, but you're not going to know until you speak with customers and run stuff by them.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. I could talk about this all day long.
So can I.
Well, yeah, and then you get paid to. What joy! I'm always interested in what somebody in your position, right, that brings these kinds of transformations in a company. If there's one thing you could tell a CEO about what you do and why all of this is important, what would your message be?
Talk to your customers. Understand first how they want to feel. And second, understand why they keep coming back to your company for more. Because what I often find is that the reasons you think that they're coming back are not the reasons why they're coming back. You think they're coming back because of your products and services, your features. They're coming back because of the way your brand makes them feel. And if you can harness that information, if you could articulate what they are saying, you'll probably find that there are other people in the world who would be your customers if they knew that they could come and get that where you are.
Perfect. Great encapsulation.
Thank you.
So we get to our favorite part of the show. Now, I remember some of your music from our last conversation.
I don't remember what I said. We'll see if it's consistent or not.
It was real 90s. It was real 90s that transition from the '80s sound, if I remember correctly, uh, was kind of your motivation, and you use music as motivation, as I remember as well.
Absolutely. I have music on all the time. I have music on all the time.
So what are you
So,
listening to these
so
days?
I'll transition from the 80s to today with an artist that I'm really fascinated by. So what I might have said on the last one, I don't recall because there are a few things I go to, but I was a Van Halen fan from the beginning. Like I love Van Halen and listened to it in high school and throughout time, and still to this day, it's a favorite band of mine. These days, I'm incredibly into Mammoth WVH, which is Wolfgang Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen's son. He has a band. They're starting to trickle out tracks from his third album. I've been to 3 of his concerts. No, I've been to 2 of his concerts in the last year and a half, and I have one coming up in November. My daughter and I are going, and it's going to be a blast. He's absolutely amazing. He's so wonderful. He plays like his father with a completely unique and current sound.
He's
And
brought
it's-
it into his own.
and it's just fascinating. But I'll tell you one concert. I mean, and the Mammoth Wolfie Van Halen concerts are amazing. One concert that we did last summer, me and my daughters, we went to a small art center and had an afternoon listening to Sammy Hagar, the Best of Both Worlds tour, which is Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony. Sammy Hagar, the second former lead singer of Van Halen, and Michael Anthony, the bassist. And they put together a band that is doing pretty much all Van Halen songs. And I was there with my 2 daughters, who are both in their 20s. And my older daughter looks at me and she said, "This is amazing. I've been listening to this music with you since I was born, and here I am seeing it played live." It was absolutely
Wow,
great. It was absolutely
awesome.
great. Yeah, it was so much fun.
So, that generational part of rock and roll is so cool.
Yeah,
My daughter turned me on to a band called Peach Pit,
I don't know it.
and they're kind of a mellow vibe, but they've got some chops on, they rock. And I said to her, it almost reminds me as if the Beatles' grandchildren were making music. And my
Amazing.
daughter loved that. So I go into a store a few weeks later, and Peach Pit was playing in the store, and I mentioned it to the clerk behind the counter, and she was like, "Oh, I love Peach Pit." And I said, "It's like the Beatles' grandchildren." And she was like, "I love it."
That's a great way to couch it. That's amazing. That's so good. I'll have to check them out.
I think you talked about uh, Wolfgang Van Halen the last time. Something
Yeah.
about his tour box was open and his guitars were out.
Oh yeah.
Was that you?
So the first time I saw him, yeah, we were in a small venue, probably 1,500 people venue, basically a bar with a stage and a dance floor, and I was going to the men's room, and the men's room is like nearly behind stage to the left. And as I was walking by the stage to get to the men's room, I look and there's like this rack of guitars, and I'm like, oh my god, those are like Wolfie's guitars. Like, I took a picture. I called my friend over, and I sent the picture to my daughters, and they're like, "Are you backstage?" I'm like, "No, I just went." Oh, it was really cool. Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I kind of am backstage, and I'm just going to the bathroom.
yeah. Just like I don't think he's using the same restroom, and he's kind of on stage right now, so I don't think he's going to be here. But you never know.
No, I share your affinity for Mammoth. We've seen them a few times. Last time they were opening for Foo Fighters.
Amazing. I saw the Foo Fighters a year and a half ago. Amazing.
Yeah, we saw them last summer.
Yeah,
Great,
that is
great stuff. Great music.
Absolutely. That's my go-to. That kind of stuff is
Yeah.
my go-to.
All right.
But I love how we've been talking about the emotional connection of a brand.
Mhm.
And Tom and I started this podcast. We met at a networking event. We met for coffee after that. And it was within 10 minutes, we realized that both of us had gone to see Boston in the same year on the same tour in 2 different cities, LA and Chicago.
That's great.
And that led, Tom's a sales consultant, I'm marketing, and it led us to this idea that today a brand or a company has to have marketing and sales playing in sync like a band. And everything that a band does today is what you could think of as a metaphor to have a high performance marketing and sales organization. And that's kind of how we got down this road.
Yeah.
So to connect it now with what you're talking about, that emotional, because it's been amazing. Tom, you can attest to this,
Mm.
how when we get to this section of the program, how people harken back to high school and college and their first
Mm.
this or their first that, and you can, like, their face changes as we're talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
true.
You know,
And
anytime I see a documentary of a band, even if it's a band that I wasn't connected with before, you know more about them, you feel for them, and then all of a sudden you start listening to their music. There are a lot of bands that I've been listening to that I saw a documentary and I'm like, oh, it's good to know the story behind that. And
the
then you start getting
stories,
connected.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, music is such a connector of people.
Yep.
And we appreciate you being on the show and connecting the dots from brand and from music. And
Thank you.
thanks for joining us. And we look forward to sharing this out with you in the
I'm
coming
I'm
days.
so thrilled to be here. And if anybody wants to learn more about Brand Desire, you can go to branddesirebook.com and see all the details of what's inside.
That's great.
Well, we've known each other about 5 years. I've learned so much from you, and I can't wait till the book comes out. I actually have a client I'm sending a copy to
I thank you
already.
so much for that. And I've learned so much from you as well. So this is a wonderful way to talk about it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Tom, as always, the man with the questions.
Thank you, Tom.
$1,000,000
Thank you, Kevin.
Good
And
questions as
Keith.
always.
Oh, like Keith said, this could be a topic we could spend hours offline talking about, and you talk about every day.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Too, and best of luck on Brand Desire. I'm sure that is a branding revolutionary idea, the way that you describe it, and it'll be a wild success for you.
Well, thank you for saying that and helping me get the word out.
You got
Thanks.
it.
Our pleasure, dude.
Yep.
And everybody, thank you for joining us. And we will be sharing some of the clips